Hi, everyone. Is it working? I'm not used to using a microphone. I should approach. Okay, thank you. So hi, my name is Samar Muslemani. I am an occupational therapist working in the community service, and I'm also a PhD student under the supervision of Dr. Cynthia Gagnon. And it's my first time here at the Myotonic Dystrophy Foundation conference. So I'm really thrilled, and I'm really, really happy to be presenting to you a subject I'm passionate about, which is ways to make your daily life easier with an occupational therapist. As you may have already noticed, English is not my first language, so I might speak or use words differently, but I'll try my best to be as clear as possible. And if something is not clear enough, just make me a face or something, and I'll try to rephrase the best I can. Okay, so let's start. Oops. Okay, good. So the goal of the presentation, I've separated in 3 topics, which is present to you what is occupational therapy, because not everyone knows what it's about. How can occupational therapy help me? And the solutions to the most common issues or challenges I've seen both in my community clinical practice and my research projects in myotonic dystrophy, and of course, solutions to those issues and challenges. How's the speed, right? It's okay. Good. So I'd like to start with a quote that I really, really love about occupational therapy, which says, occupational therapy is where science, creativity, and compassion collide. It's Jessica Fensky that said that at the 2016 American Occupational Therapy Association conference. And my goal today is that at the end of the presentation, you might understand and appreciate how occupational therapy can change lives with this great example of a quote. So what is occupational therapy? It's a type of healthcare, of course, that helps people participate in the occupations that are meaningful and give purpose to their lives. We as occupational therapists, we are experts at task analysis. So we always look into our patient, and we do not only see our patient, we see the person, of course, her environment, and his occupation. And we consider all of these, we take all these factors into account to assess and intervene on your occupational performance, which is how you accomplish your activities. And I'll be using the words activities and occupations, but it's the same thing. So just wanted to present some slides about how these factors may be different for everyone. Your participation or how you accomplish your activities of daily living, they are influenced, of course, by your environment. These are just a few examples, but the support you have from family and friends. I think we have a lot of caregivers here today that if you have access to a caregiver or not can influence, of course, your participation. Technology, home adaptations, your financial means, of course, is inevitable. And system policies, insurance here in the US, for example, are not as the same as in Canada. Who you are, as we all know, myotonic dystrophy is a complex disease, and it's also so different from one another. It's the clinical presentation varies, the severity of symptoms varies. So we all have, even if it's the same disease, it's not the same management. Also, we consider your habits, your life experiences, your values, and it's going to be more clear in the next slide. Occupations are the activities that we do in our everyday lives. I've just put a few of them on the screen, but the thing I want you to notice is that the value we give to different occupations are not the same. For example, someone could really love cooking and cleaning and want to invest their energy and effort in these activities, but cleaning, not so much. And it's okay. And everyone is different. And we, as occupational therapists, we take that into account. And this is what makes the interventions more optimal and more beneficial to our client. So how does it work? So we like to start with assessing or evaluation. We need to understand how you accomplish your activities. So, for example, not everyone cooks their eggs the same way, not everyone does their cleaning the same way, and to offer a suggestion or an intervention, a solution that fits into your daily life, we have to understand how you do it. For example, if you never eat eggs, and we suggest you new ways to cook, or it won't make sense to the person. It's a bit of an exaggerated example, but you get what I mean. So we need to know what you like, your dislike, your goals in order to better help you. So we use many ways of understanding how you do your activities. We like to do interviews, so just talk, questionnaires, some use assessment tools, but most of us, we like to observe. So don't be surprised if we come to you and we ask you, could you teach me how you, could you not teach me, could you just show me how you get up in the morning? What's your morning routine? Could you show me how you cook your eggs? And it seems weird at first, and it's even a bit intimidating to cook in front of someone that's watching you. But we see so much when we see you in your activity, and in your home is so much different than what we can see at the hospital, for example. So we really learn a lot from you. The next step, after we've assessed and understood how you do your activities, what are the steps that are harder than the others, or what are the challenges, we can offer you different interventions. And I like to say that as occupational therapists, we have like a big toolbox. And this table, it's a big table just to say that we have so many different intervention possibilities. And just to name a few, we can do, of course, some training. We can do skill development. We can offer education to you or your caregivers, family and friends. We can do task adaptation. So we suggest you new ways to do what you're already doing, just so, for example, you can save more energy or things like that. So that's one thing we do. We can do a lot of environmental modifications. So just change the way I'm forgetting my words, but the way your living room is set up. So we have more space, for example, if you have a wheelchair coming, things like that. Now, the crunchy part, the occupations. I'm just going to take a sip of water. So for these sections, I've thought about the most common challenges I've seen, as I said earlier, and I'm going to be presenting different occupations, different activities. It's always going to be the same way. So the activity, how myotonic dystrophy can affect this activity, and examples of solutions I've already tried or some just in the works. So here it is. We start with eating. So in myotonic dystrophy, as you already know, chewing, not only, yes, there is dysphagia, swallowing the food is hard, and it's particularly important because of the repercussion it can have on your, you can, get pneumonia, things like that if you have aspiration. So it's really important to address this. And more and more studies have reported that even if the person, it's her or himself could not notice it, but there is still some dysphagia. So it's really important to be alert. I've put with the yellow flag some tips some cues that should tell you, oh, maybe I should consult someone about my difficulty in swallowing. So if you've been coughing more frequently during meals, or even if you've stopped eating certain foods like chips, crackers, popcorn is so hard to swallow. So this is one. Also, chewing the food is hard. You thinking about motor skills, holding the spoon, bringing it to your mouth. I've seen people with some difficulty, and of course, cutting hard foods like steaks. So let's start with dysphagia. In occupational therapy, we work with speech therapists and nutritionists with when we address dysphagia. It's all about teamwork. So we can assess your swallowing issues. We can improve oral motor skills, work on your fine motor hand skills. We can, and I know it's you may have heard about it, altering textures of food. So we can make some foods easier to swallow and decrease energy spent on eating, and positioning. I'm going to talk about this one a lot today. Just for the eating, I suggest taking, and I think you have handouts. So if I speak too quickly, it's all written and you can access it later, but you can take your time to eat, take small bites. I suggest always to try and separate foods and liquids. For example, if you can avoid eating soup, or just separate the solids from the liquids, because it's hard to mix different textures when swallowing. Texture adaptation is possible, as I already said, and we can even teach you to learn the Heimlich maneuver to you or your caregivers, which can be useful. Hopefully not, but it can happen. Positioning. Okay, so of course we have to use gravity at our advantage. So I've seen people having swallowing issues, and it's just because of their positioning. So if you're crouched, if as you can see, the lady here, can you see my mouse? Yes, is so far away from her bowl. So this factors in and makes it so much harder, and even makes eating less enjoyable for some patients. So we can suggest different positionings, putting cushions, yes, things like that too. So you have a better posture. And the same thing applies for bed positioning if you do eat on bed, but I don't see that much with my patients. There are, of course, assistive device in the occupational therapy. So we use rim plates, and I really like that it's becoming more and more trendy. The one on the right, the white plate, it's really trendy, and it's really useful to help spoon the food. You can buy larger utensils. I just want to say that be aware that sometimes larger utensils, it's easier to grab, but some of them comes with a heavier, like it's heavier at the same time. And this is not something that's been so successful with myotonic dystrophy patients. So just when you're looking at these utensils, be sure not to buy those, or at least try it before. Because with the muscle weakness, it's hard to hold the spoon, and we don't want to make eating harder. And non-slip material under your plate to prevent it from moving around. I use this all the time for myself. I use it to open jars, to open anything that's hard. So I really love this one. So it's a Dyson, the picture. For the swallowing issue, I really recommend, and maybe you've heard, of course, you have to sit upright, but also when you're eating, at the moment you want to swallow, just tilt your head down. So your chin points to the chest, and this protects your airways and limits the risk of aspiration, so that the food goes in the right pipe. So I really suggest this one, and stay upright for 20 to 30 minutes after eating, so the gravity works its magic. Now let's talk about bathing. As in decreased muscle strength, fatigue may lead to different difficulties in bathing. Opening the faucet if you have hand issues, getting in and out of the tub. This one is pretty common. Washing your hair, because you have to hold your hands up for a long time, and this can be hard. And poor standing balance increase fall risks, of course. So again, with the yellow flag, the Q-tips, if you've noticed you're afraid of not being able to come out of the bathtub, you stumble while trying to get into the bathtub, or you've stopped altogether taking showers just because it's too exhausting, or just because you're afraid of falling down, this is something that should tell you, okay, let's talk to an occupational therapy, because there's so many solutions there, and even more. I'm not gonna show you all of them, but there's so much more, so many. So for getting in and out of the tub, we usually like to see how you do it first, and then we can suggest you other ways. It seems simple, but it seems weird at first, but we can, for example, teach you if you have a stronger limb, if you have a right side that is more strong, the way your environment, your shower faucet is positioned, we can just teach or try with you new ways to enter the bathtub, so it's easier, less exhausting, less there's another word than exhausting, but I think you get what I mean. There's, of course, assistive devices like transfer bench or chairs. Some go like the white one goes all the way into the bathtub, so you can take a real bath, but some stay upright, like the gray chair. And there's faucets with temperature control. I wouldn't be a good occupational therapist if I didn't have a slide on handlebars. So the main thing to remember here is that the one on the green, these are the two main handlebars that you want in your shower. If you have a shower like that, kind of a bath shower, always the vertical one, so you can hold on to it while you do this movement. I'm sorry for the people on screen, on virtual. And also the one diagonal. This is the best picture I found, but it could be a little higher and more diagonal. But this one is to help you if you want to if you're sitting in a chair and you want to get up, it helps. Or if you're in the bathtub and you want to get out, this is absolutely necessary. There's in the middle, you can see there's many models. I've put a red mark on the suction bars because they are not recommended. Air tends to get in with time, and you never know when it's going to just fall off and not work, and it's too dangerous. I really recommend the more permanent one. And of course, there's poles that are useful. But with myotonic dystrophy, I really suggest you see an occupational therapist first, because holding on to because of the myotonia and the muscle weakness, it may be hard to hold on to the pole. So I've seen people use the inside of the elbow instead. And these are techniques we can just look with your patient, and we can install it first without fixing it. So you can just try it out for a week, and then if it still works, we'll fix it permanently. Yeah, thank you. And now I'd like to talk about home adaptation. Home adaptation, this example is for a bathroom, but as you know, it can be for any room in your house. First of all, if you're thinking of, if you already have a house that does not fit your needs, we can help you, of course, change it. And the example is going to be, I think, really visual. But also, if you're thinking about changing apartments or moving, occupational therapists can help you maybe make you a list of things you have to watch, considering your not only your physical abilities, but the prognosis and your if you have family and things like that. And it's not just about if the house has stairs or not. It's really more complex than that. So occupational therapists are here for you if you need. This one, I really like this home adaptation I've done. She did have many assistive devices, as you can see, the Aquatech, which is in the tub, but with time, it just didn't work anymore. So we had to do a full home adaptation. These are the pictures. What I want you to notice, first of all, is that home adaptations do not have to scream disability. They can still be pretty. They can still be, I like the word trendy, but it's still yet be functional. I like this one because we work really together. The large, and you can see with the pictures, there's a large entry and sliding door. There's a big rotation area for transfers and wheelchair use. Before, she had storage, but really high, and she couldn't always get up. So we lowered that down for her. We, of course, there's handlebars. There's a faucet with temperature control. Alcove at the right height, of course, a telephone shower, and space under the sink for the wheelchair. So this is just an example of the things we can do. Now let's switch to personal care. So with myotonic dystrophy, I've seen some challenges. One being remembering to brush your teeth 3 times a day. Handling, of course, with the motor skills, handling the toothbrush, toothpaste, razor, makeup items. These are so many small items that are hard to manipulate, and cutting toenails. So just a few recommendations. I do insist and talk with my patients about oral health tips, because it is important. I suggest visiting your dentist at least once a year, even if you don't have any natural teeth anymore, or if you have dentures, and limit alcohol and tobacco use. There's assistive device as always. The pictures you can see is mine. I always like to try some out. I really see struggles with handling the toothpaste, the cap, things like that. So I tried this one. It's just you take your toothbrush and you press it, and again with the gravity it falls, and so you don't have to manipulate the toothpaste. And it cost me like $1, so it's really nice. It's not obvious, but I do have an electrical brush. So this is a must also for myotonic dystrophy patients. If you're a caregiver and your myotonic dystrophy partner or a relative do not spend many time brushing your teeth, like 5 minutes and it's done, then you can at least have an electrical toothbrush, which makes it more efficient. There's nowadays water picks, which are easier to manipulate than the string. Of course, universal cuffs that can help you hold your razor, hold your toothbrush, hold your makeup items. And the suction thing for the toenails, to be honest, I've never used it. I've tried it, but never used it. But I think it could be a great option but mostly for fingernails, not toenails, because you'd have to be in a weird position. It should be hard, but just so you know that it exists. Now let's switch to common issues in mobility. So distal muscle weakness, foot drop, balance issues may lead to difficulty, of course, in climbing stairs or completely avoiding them. Difficulty in transfers, such as standing up from a sitting position or getting in and out of your bed, just as I talked about getting in and out of the tub earlier. And of course, falls. I've put a little bit more focus on that because falls are 10 times more current in DM1, according to one study. And 20 to 30% of fall results in injury that reduces mobility and independence in the general population. So it's really important. I've even put a red flag instead of a yellow one, just to make a point. So fall risks include running to get to the telephone or bathroom, electronics, so cords, or can be quite dangerous, animals, rugs, and not taking your walking aid with you. Do not be afraid. If you see an occupational therapist, we will not tell you to get rid of your dog or your animal. This is not what we do, but we do suggest, for example, if you're in the bathroom, or maybe you could put in a room, for example, while you have to move around a lot when you're cleaning. This is an example of a suggestion we can make. To prevent fall, occupational therapists, when we come to your house, we kind of have like radar eyeglasses or something like that. We get into a room and we see immediately all the fall risk, and we can help you. Okay, let's change that. Oh, okay, this rug, is it always I forgot my word, but is the rug always in this position? Maybe we could switch. We could switch it. So we can suggest you on the spot some solutions, like adjusting the light of the room and night lights, organization of the environment according to the familiarity and utility of objects, adding visual cues, and reduce the presence of thresholds, carpets, or floor covering changes. For example, talking about rugs, I do use the non-slip material I showed you earlier. We can use that under the rug so it doesn't move, and it's a lesser risk of fall. And I was looking at some resources, and I saw that the CDC made a checklist to guide you into securing your home. So if you do not have access to an occupational therapist right away, you can still look at it and find at least fix at least some hazards in your home. For mobility, we can, of course, assess your walking aid or wheelchair need if you do have if you maybe need one. We can adapt your technique of transfer, do some environmental modification. Assistive equipment can be suggested like Ooh, I did not look at this. I prepared myself as I was looking at some words in French I don't know in English, but I forgot this one, fauteuil auto-souleveur, which is just a sofa that lifts up automatically, but I do not have the word in English at all. Lift chair, but yeah, sofa, thanks. There's M rails, like the bar with the handsome man holding onto it, and the electrical bed, of course. For mobility, there's training programs. I don't know if you've heard about this, but our colleague, Professor Elise Duchesne, just did with men and now just did with women a 12-week training program, which has really nice results, both on functional skills performance, like physical tests, but also in cognitive factors like fatigue was better, the level of energy, motivation was better. So it was really nice. And it's published. So you can, and she's here actually, Dr. Professor Elise Duchesne. So if you want to see her, she's here this weekend. So you can ask her some questions if you want. Meal preparation, which is a hard activity. Yes, the motor impairments have an impact, like cutting ingredients, opening jars, twist caps, canned food, holding and moving heavy objects like a pot full of water. But also the cognitive issues we can see in myotonic dystrophy, just such as lack of motivation, fatigue, planification difficulties, they do have an impact on meal preparation. I see that there's less than a third of adults with DM1 that need help or just do not cook anymore. So it is an issue. Some quick recommendations: adapt or divide the different steps in your meal preparation. Use pre-cut vegetables, or just cut them the day before and then continue your meal preparation the next day, so it's easier. Several grocery stores can prepare your order in advance and also deliver it for you. And there's also prepared food that comes in a box right to your doorstep, which can be really useful. Housekeeping, again, with the motivation issues, this can be hard with myotonic dystrophy. Also, the motor impairments such as lower extremity strength, fatigue can lead to difficulty scrubbing countertops, washing dishes, floors, washing your bathtub. So these are pretty common and important issues. Again, with the task adaptation, we do suggest to distribute the steps throughout the day. Like I always do this. I rinse, soak the first night, and then the next day I wash them. Simplify the task. If you have to fold your clothes, for example, can you sit down while you're doing this? Or instead of staying up, which is more physically demanding. There are so many assistive devices. I really like the robot, which if you already have one, it's nice. You know what I mean. And other devices are available. Hiring someone else so you can focus your energy somewhere else. There's no shame in that. As I said, we do not give the same value and meaning to different activities, and it's okay not to invest your energy the same way that, I don't know, other people do. And we'll talk about this one more, but stop working before becoming overly tired is one of the energy conservation techniques that we suggest, because once you fill out your battery, it's really, really harder to return to your activity or regain your same level of energy. Let's talk about work a bit. Fatigue, daytime sleepiness, apathy, memory, attention, and concentration difficulties can have an impact in work, in school also. If you have in your relatives some children with myotonic dystrophy, this is a pretty big challenge. Also, the physical toll of either desk job or manual labor, they each have their own challenges that can be addressed in occupational therapy. And even before we can help, of course, we are experts at task analysis. So if you have a job, we can even go to your job with you and try to find new ways to do your different tasks. We collaborate with bosses, with your employer. And but even before, if you're still in school, if you're thinking about reorienting yourself, changing jobs, we can help you because we understand your abilities, we understand the what different jobs demand as for abilities and some movements or things like that. So we can help you with ergonomic evaluation. We can assess your functional capacity evaluation and consider long-term prognosis also. Will you be able to maintain this job for a few years, or will it be too harder soon? So that's about it. For school and desk job, we, again, with the positioning, we assess if you're sitting right to prevent you from getting shoulder, neck, back, hip, or wrist pain. Laptops are great, but not a good invention for our backs because the screen is so low with the keyboard. So if you have another keyboard laying at home, I suggest you use it. You can do some home adaptation yourselves, just as putting another screen on some books, and it's already really better for you. And I always suggest to everyone, for each hour you work, get out for 5 minutes, go take a walk, go take a bathroom break if you need to, get yourself a glass of water, or even do some exercise, stretching. This is really important because sitting in the same position, whatever the position is, this is really hard on your body. Let's get back to energy management recommendations. So healthy lifestyle habits are really essential: eating, drinking water, sleep, and exercise. If you did not first go to your get a formal assessment, it can be pretty important to see, for example, your family physician, because some medications can help. Also, if energy conservation techniques, we sit down with you as occupational therapists. We talk about some ways you can modify your activities. For example, planning ahead to avoid rushing, choosing what you will keep, for example, your most meaningful activities, adapt your activities and be inventive, listen to what your body is telling you, as I said earlier, and delegate when possible. And these are large general guidelines, but of course, when we are one-on-one, these suggestions are better one-on-one because we adapt to what are your activities, how you do them. So this is just an example, some examples. Last but not least, driving is there's some issues with driving, of course, in myotonic dystrophy. For example, the cataracts may impair your vision. The cognitive impairments such as excessive daytime sleepiness, fatigue, makes it harder to concentrate, even to react quickly. And you do have to react quickly sometimes when you're driving. And mobility issues can be challenging also, like pushing the pedals with your legs. So again, with the red flag, if you've noticed your eyesight has decreased, you have to resist from falling asleep if you're driving a long time. You have problems with lane changes, merging, minor accidents. So you should at least try to consult an occupational therapist, and we can do a lot of things. We can, of course, assess your driving ability, ensure your seating posture is optimal, suggest interventions or vehicle modifications. I've put some examples on the screen, but there's a lot available nowadays. They do magic tricks in cars. It's really nice. We can recommend adapted equipment to enhance your driving practice, and we can even do some driving training with you, so you can improve your driving skills. And also, if these solutions do not work, we can help find alternative transportation options with our clients. This one is CarFit. I found that while I was looking for some resources, I did not use that because I think it's the same thing in America, but in Canada, occupational therapists need another course need to be specialized when assessing and intervening in driving, but it was recommended by the American Occupational Therapy Association. So I put it up anyway. There's some workshop online, some resources, even forums to discuss about some issues you have with driving, or you've noticed some things. So I think it looked like a nice resource. And everything I've put today when talking about resources will be at the end in the references. So there's some links you can click on. And I'd like to end with some ending messages. I want you to try to remember that occupational therapy is all about teamwork. We do not tell you what to do. We work with you, and we always begin by understanding how you do your things, and then we compromise just so our interventions are meaningful and stick, because we do not work so that we do not want to modify you the way you do your activities, because it won't be meaningful, it won't be significant for you. But I know it's a lot of change. In occupational therapy, we suggest new assistive devices, new ways to do things, and it can be intimidating at first. It can be, whoa, wait a minute. But just try it out. If you don't like it, you can say no. You're still the boss. You decide what you accept, the changes you accept or not. But it's important to at least try it a couple times or for a few weeks, because every change needs time. And also occupational therapy, occupational engagement, is fundamentally important to human well-being. So, and well-being is a human right. So you have the right to participate at your level of satisfaction in your activity. So these are my references, and I'm available for if you have any questions, and my email is up there if you need if you want to write me an email instead, be more one-on-one. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Samar. We'll go ahead and open things up for a Q&A. We have about 25 minutes for Q&A. So if anyone has a question, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll bring you the microphone. Zoomers, same for you. If you have questions, type them into the chat and we'll read them out loud. I don't think I need a microphone. We'll do it just purely for Zoom so that they can hear you.
This is kind of right to the target of an issue. Okay. So it's real. My nephew's living alone with DM, and we're trying to keep him, and he wants to be living alone as long as possible. So some of the questions I don't want to ask him directly. For his self-cleanliness care after he uses the bathroom.
Yes.
I've read about these toilets. This is kind of a personal question, but somebody's got to ask it, right? Do you believe in these, or what do you think about these kind of toilets that clean automatically, or
bidet? Yes.
Yeah. So what is your opinion on that? And
I should have put it in my presentation, but to begin with, yes, it's I've tried it with patients, and usually it's really successful. Some of them include séchage, the dry thing, some not. So you have to look into it. The only thing is some of them do not fit with all toilets. So just be sure to look into the format of your toilet. And if some of them come with a weird incline, so it may be easier for the self-cleaning, but make the transfer harder. So you really have to assess this. But afterwards, I've seen great results with this. So I would recommend it. But some models are expensive, some are less. So really be sure to buy the right one for you and your bathroom.
I was just going to say, as far as the bidet, Home Depot, Lowe's, go to any of those places and ask them, and they'll be able to help you. Yeah. There's lots of cheap products that you can use as an add-on, especially if it's a rental. It's not his property. So there are a lot of cheap ways that he can add that on at home. It's not necessarily portable.
Yeah.
So I'm a rehab doctor. So full disclosure, I have fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
I had a couple of other little life hacks that I've learned from my patients that I've worked with. Like I have patients who hate getting their nails clipped. And so there is an electric nail clipper that's a lot easier. It seems like a black box, but you just put your nail in and it clips it for you. A swivel spoon, which I'm sure you probably have seen. So the spoon itself is weighted, but the handle is not. So as you scoop up the soup, no matter what angle you have to grip the handle, the spoon stays level. So you're not spilling soup everywhere. If your grip has to turn as you bring your hand up to your mouth, and then a rocker knife. So that doesn't take a large amount of control. So if you're wanting to chop vegetables, if you're cutting up meat, it has a large handle and you just rock it back and forth. So it's not like a saw motion and it's an easier grip. And all these things are available on Amazon for pretty cheap. But I'd also be curious, I think, to hear experiences around the room, if there's no more questions, of other life hacks that you guys have maybe thought of, because I found I learn the most when I ask patients, well, how do you do that? And they're like, oh, we've been doing it this way for years. And you're like, I've never even thought of that. Like, you should patent that. So anyway, if anyone else has.
Yeah,
Well, just to go further down the toilet road, and Samar, you should have put it on. I forgot to also. So she found amazing work from occupational therapy for menstrual hygiene.
Yes.
So we never talk about this, but there is, issue with that, like tampon and, putting on, changing often and everything, and with the increasing difficulty. And so maybe when you send it back, just put the wonderful website of Australian occupational therapists that have done like a little clinical resources to know about what are the things that you can do. And there's very wonderful product that can be given and teach to your daughter or for yourself, So I think that's, so I'm going just a little bit further now.
And also, bidet can be so useful also for menstrual hygiene too. And I wanted to say, I don't know how it works in the different funding options in America, but in Canada, we have associations and government that can reimburse bidet as it's considered an assistive device, just as a walking aid. So you can look into it also.
I'm just sharing your comment about female products. I was with my 22-year-old son, and he has problems with leakage from his bottom. And so his whole issue has been, he's got speech issues. He soils his underwear. And he is, so we go into Target and I'm like, what do you need? And he's like, I'm out of pads. So he goes over to I didn't know where the ladies section was. He goes and gets his pads, and he wears every day when he puts his underwear on, he puts on a pad, and that basically allows him, if he does have an accident, to change. And he's now able to manage that. And, it's, you're asking for ideas that I never thought I'd be buying female pads for my 22-year-old son.
Thank you.
It should be not gender neutral.
Yes.
So I have a comment on the pads. There's pads for blood and there's pads for urine. And urine's heavier than the blood, so they're like discreet, I guess. I get those because they absorb better than for blood. But my question is, I have difficulty raising my arms above my head. And so I have a lot of challenges washing my hair, blow drying my hair, combing it. And I do a lot of things bending upside down to do it all. Yes. So I just want to see if anyone have any tips or help in doing some of those above, raising your arms up.
I do. I completely understand these challenges. I've seen for drying the hair some. Could you help me again? Séchoir in English. Hair dryer. It's not so hard. Okay, so a hair dryer can be fixed sometimes to the wall. Oh, so you just have to press it and then just. So I've seen this one a few times. For washing the hair, I think you, as you said, I didn't know your name, but you did find yourself a great alternative, which is making it in the sink, upside down. As you said, it's a great trick also. I do also recommend sometimes dry shampoo, which is to compensate for the days you cannot, because it's really it takes a lot of energy to wash your hair and holding your hair. Even if it's upside down, it still needs a lot of energy. So if you can use dry shampoo, it works for some people, for some other not. What else? I think right off the bat, these would be it, but I could look into it, of course.
Another thing that was some of my patients back in the days when I was an occupational therapist, they use, those old air, at the salon, you have an air dryer that is going around you. So there is old models that still can be bought. So at least you can start air drying like that and just finishing your brushing with your hand. So that will get rid of a lot of water. So that will help to get it better. And there is some air dryer that are a lot better than others. So if you shop for hair dryers, I got won't name it, but it's wonderful. I mean, I've got 4 daughters, they've got hair like me, and it takes a lot less time. So maybe it's also getting into investing into a good air dryer that will help.
I would also recommend long-handled sponge. I'm using a long-handled sponge when you're actually doing the washing process so that you can still hold it and it has a longer handle. I've also seen people modify a dressing stick and just like duct tape the brush or whatever they use on the end of that and use that to brush their hair as well, so that you're not having to reach, but you still have the control.
So this kind of goes along with that, and I need help with clothes. Like my mom and I had a big struggle this morning getting a dress on, because I have to bend over, or I need assistance with anything going up and over my head. So I do a lot of upside down. But is there anything out there to help with dressing, mainly the top?
Yeah, there's we suggest the clothes you buy, you could prefer if the buttons, for example, are too hard, you could avoid them. Things like that we can suggest. There's also the technique you use to put on your shirt, for example. There's so many, and I would have to look at the way you do it and then suggest you some, but sometimes it's from the arm and then the head. Sometimes it's straight up the head. Sometimes it's placing the shirt before. It seems a bit foggy said like that, but there's ways we can suggest you if you have a stronger arms, if you have pain in one shoulder. It depends on all of these factors, but there are ways to put on some shirts. Sitting down, of course, I think we must already do that, and assistive devices for some more tricky parts, as I said, the buttons, or how do you call that? Saint-Gorge.
Bra.
A bra. Things like that. Yes.
There's a company called Magna Ready, and my husband's clothes, his dress shirts look like normal dress shirts, but they're magnets under the buttons.
Yeah.
And
great.
They make clothes for women as well. So that's his whole wardrobe has switched to Magna Ready shirts now, and he still looks like he's dressed up.
I was going to say the same. I don't know about Magna Ready, but there are a lot of adaptive clothing lines out there now. I mean, way more than there were even 5 years ago. Also, just getting to know a good seamstress. And if you find a piece that you love and you're like, I don't want to give it up, but it's so hard to get on by yourself, and they can add some really good Velcro or even the snaps or magnetic or whatever you're comfortable with, or hidden buttons and different ways to make it easier for you to adapt it to get it on by yourself, but not have to get rid of the piece that you really like, or if you don't like the adaptive clothing that's out there.
Thank you.
Just one more question, trying to keep my nephew as independent as possible, living alone. That's his goal. Worrying about falling. I was thinking either we put like these cameras around the house, which is kind of weird, or do you have a recommendation on, or anybody on a device that he could wear, but that he won't take off or won't not want to wear? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, there's the more and more intelligent watches come with the detection fall. So I really do appreciate that. My Apple Watch, I think it's not the right series, but they can do this. And I think, Miss, you want to add something?
I was going to say the Apple Watch.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I
the
bought
Apple
for my
Watch.
husband, and it works.
So he just wears the watch and
You wear the watch, it's fall detection, and it will ask you, it'll start shaking your arm, asking you if you're okay. If it does, if you don't respond, it calls 911.
Yes.
But you can say, oh, I just feel I'm okay, or no, I need assistance.
Is it sensitive to like height? Like if he falls on the floor, let's say he's fine, but he falls on the floor, he lives alone.
Mhm.
So
I think it's
Yes,
sensitive.
It does. And I have fallen with mine on, and it's shook my arm.
Yeah.
So,
And it also sends text to your, sometimes I've already triggered it once without my knowledge, and it sent a text to my parents, my sister, and things, so just so they know, okay, there's something that's happening. And with the, depending on if he wants to, but because falls do not only happen at home, you can still do the you can locate where is the watch, for example. So if he falls somewhere, you can at least go and look at this place, because
that's what I was going to say too,
Yes.
is you can put who to contact, because I've been at work and it would go off and, he's fallen or he's not responding or whatever. And you get the cellular one, and in America, it's only $10 a month, which is a whole lot cheaper than the other devices. It's not monitored like some of the other devices, but it is a cheaper option.
Is there a name for that, the fall protection?
No, it comes series 4 and
Yeah.
above.
I think I have a series 3, and I do not have the fall risk.
Yeah,
the fall
4
detection.
and above.
4 and
Yes.
above. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I was just going to say, you're worrying about your nephew and cameras. I actually, with my sons, when we leave them in the house, the hallways, the kitchen, we actually have cameras there. And I feel it's a big brother-esque, but we've told them that the cameras are there. If you don't want them, you can turn them around. But it means for my wife and I, when we leave the boys in the house by themselves, rather than picking the phone up and then we're continually bugging, just having the peace of mind to just go, they're okay. It's no bedrooms or anything, but it's like just around the house. We left our oldest son for 3 weeks and, had people coming by. But that was the first time he was by himself, and we just wanted to make sure he was going to be okay. And he was perfectly fine with it. If he didn't want to do it, you don't, we'll get rid of all of them. But saying that's what we ended up doing.
Specifically, no, so they're not in every room.
They're not in every room. So basically in the television room, in the kitchen, and in the hallway. And, and basically they spend a lot of time in the television room where the video games are. And we're like, oh yeah, they're fine. And I've also set it up so that what I'm worried about is them leaving the gas stove on. And so by having a camera there, it just reduces the anxiety of worrying about them. And they're bought into it.
Well, just 2 points. There is now detection when the stove is open too long as well.
Yes.
So you can have that so that you No, but it will. I'm going to write to Apple right now. So there is a lot of those detection now that are actually devised for other population, but that can be used. And they're older adult, Alzheimer, everything. And now there's amazing thing into what they call intelligent home. So yes, you can open your store, you can do this, but there's also a lot of alert. So the occupational therapist as well will be the right person to advise on all those intelligent home adaptation that you can have. And the second thing now is a message from Myotonic Dystrophy Foundation, where we have over. No, I was just wondering from a patient and carer perspective, would that be a nice place where we have a section on activities of daily living, common trick? And then you can see a selection of things that you can think of so that you don't have to watch the video or just, and so like a special sections on how to adapt your daily activities and for you, for your son, for your wife, or for yourself.
And even forums where what we shared today, all of these information could benefit so much more people. So if it could be available somewhere, it's a great idea.
In previous year, we had a prize, remember? So the patient that was bringing in the best, the best new trick was winning a prize live, which was just a, but it was, but I think, to share a trick and to be able to see what other patients are using. And it can also be helpful, like Samar said, to prevent use of not good tricks and advice as well, because sometimes there's things that seems like a good idea and it's not.
It doesn't work.
To go about dressing and everything, my shirts are always all buttoned up, so I just have to throw them over my head. My pants and shorts, whatever, all buttoned up. Problem I have is getting socks on. I have the hardest time. I don't have the strength to the little string and pull them up. Anybody have any idea what's a better way to get socks on?
Socks. Okay, I wasn't sure I heard it correctly. Yes, we do have assistive devices for socks, but there's so many different models, and some work, some don't. If you have short socks or long socks, but
Go with the pull. You have to pull them up.
Yes, but
You can't pull them up.
but the ones I've tried with the long, if you have long socks, they do get right in the middle of your leg, so they do work fine. If you have maybe a bigger leg or some socks are plus raide or more soft or things, it can factor in. But this is assistive device. I wouldn't know the name in English. There's also a big issue we have, and I know it's not the same thing, but with some people do have specialized socks for blood circulation, and these are really, really hard to put on. So if you ever, you know what I mean, if you've ever tried these, but for that, I did not find a solution yet. But I will look into the assistive device I was talking to you about, and I'll get back to you. Yes.
Sorry, so many questions.
Well, of course.
But it's very useful, this
This is
session.
my favorite part.
It's a very useful session. So my nephew now, he is totally having a problem opening his front door with the key. And I was thinking of installing the keyless lock. What's your experience on that? And do you have any recommendations?
I did not use that yet for occupational in my occupational therapy practice, but I do really like when they have both. So yes, the keyboard, but also a key. So you're not, if there's a problem, you can still access your house if you have your key somewhere. And there's also kinds of different kinds of doorknob even before, but because these are expensive, the numbers, and remembering the number can be a challenge. So in myotonic dystrophy, for example, so there are just doorknobs that are, we call them duck mouth. It's a bec de canard, but they're easier to move instead of a round doorknob. So these are the types of things we can look into if anyone has other suggestions. So
yeah, we installed the electric door opener, and you can do it with a fingerprint.
Oh, nice.
And he loves it. And the
Ooh.
other thing he's done is he's given all of us our own access, and we have actually, he can keep track of who's coming into his house. This is really important to him. You know, I'm there all the time, but and he knows it, but he knows when we're there, and he really likes that. The other thing we put in were the kind of handles that are like flat and you just push down. I put them through his entire house. They're also on his entry door. So that made a huge difference to him. Want to know the manufacturer?
No, I want to know, I like the lever doors. We have.
Yes.
those already.
Uh-huh.
What happens if there's a fire, how does the fire?
They use an axe.
Oh,
Yeah.
something I did not mention that's quite pertinent. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but in Canada and Quebec, we do the fire team and police team, they do have a list of people with disabilities. So they know if they go into a house with a fire, they know that someone with disability lives there. So if you did not know about this, I'm sharing it, but I think it's for parents, for example, it would that has a children living at home alone, it would be a, how do you say that, like for your mind, it's easier for your mind.
Peace of mind.
Peace of mind. Thank you.
We had those lock boxes that just hang on the door and a key in it. And so if I called 911, I was at work, I just gave them the code and they could get the key out and do it that way. So.
We have time for maybe one more question. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Samar. This was excellent.
Thank you so much for having me.